Before we start, if you're watching this because you're in pain right now, I want to say something to you. I hope you feel better soon. I mean that. People don't click on a video about pain unless they're carrying some themselves. And a lot of you are carrying it quietly, almost like it's something to be ashamed of. It isn't. I need to say this clearly. I'm not a doctor. I'm a nurse. 40 years beside hospital beds, not behind one. What I'm about to share isn't medical advice. It's what I've learned from watching and from living some of it myself. If your pain is severe, please see a doctor. Nothing here replaces that. My own worst pain wasn't giving birth without any pain medication, no epidural. Hormones do something to that memory. Looking back, it almost feels like a walk in the park. What actually broke me were a herniated disc and years later, plantar fasciitis. Both healed the conventional way, no surgery, just a lot of my own work, patience, and time. I know what it's like to lie there wondering if your body is broken or just loud. And that's the thing I want you to understand before anything else. Your body isn't always wrong when it hurts. Often it's trying to tell you something real. But it isn't always right either. Sometimes the alarm system overreacts. The same way an allergy is the immune system treating a harmless substance as a threat. Pain receptors can misfire the same way. They can flood the signal long past the point where it's actually protecting you. There's more to inflammation than the injury itself, too. Alcohol tends to feed it. Omega-3s appear to calm it. That alone could fill another video. This one has a different story to tell. Here's a number that surprised me when I first heard it. Roughly 1 in 4 adults lives with chronic pain. Not 1 in 100, 1 in 4. If you're one of them, you are not the exception. You are the majority nobody talks about at dinner. That's what this story is about. A surgeon who spent 30 years telling other people how pain works and never told them the parts that mattered most. It was 2 in the morning. He hadn't slept in 3 nights. Not because of what had happened to his back, because of what happened after. He was a surgeon, 30 years of orthopedics, a pain specialist, the kind of doctor other doctors sent their hardest cases to. And now he was lying in one of his own hospital's beds, recovering from a herniated disc. The soft, gel-like core of the disc had pushed through a tear in its outer ring and was pressing on the nerve beside it, with pain that made no sense on any scan. That night, he said the strangest thing I've ever heard from a doctor. The soul contracts the heart when it senses harm. A fog forms around it, and that's when a person becomes sad. I thought it was his own line. 30 years of watching pain distilled into one sentence. It wasn't. A woman wrote that 800 years before he said it. Hildegard von Bingen, a nun and physician in the 12th century, had already described exactly what he was living through. And medicine still doesn't fully explain it to patients. He told me 4 things that night, and in the nights after. Things he had treated for decades and never once said to the people on his own table. The first, pain doesn't always mean damage. Your nervous system can learn pain the way it learns a language. Nerve endings called nociceptors, the ones that fire when tissue is actually damaged, can stay silent for years, waiting. Some researchers call them sleeping nociceptors. They wake up when tissue gets inflamed, or when certain chemical signals reach them. And in some people, they simply stay switched on, firing for no reason anyone can find, like a system running on autopilot. The alarm doesn't ring because something is still broken. It rings because it learned how to. The disc had been treated. The scans looked clean. The pain didn't leave. The second, sometimes the body turns against itself. There's a condition called CRPS, Complex Regional Pain Syndrome. It often starts after an injury that should have been minor, a sprain, a fall, a small surgery. Weeks later, the pain hasn't faded, it's grown. The area swells, changes color, burns at the lightest touch. Researchers believe several things happen at once: misdirected immune responses, inflamed nerve pathways, and those same overactive nociceptors, all firing together. The immune system, the same one built to protect you, starts working against your own nerves. It's not imagined, it's not exaggeration, it's measurable, biological, real. He had seen it in patients for decades and quietly dismissed some of it, the way doctors are trained to when a scan comes back clean. He didn't dismiss it anymore. The third, fear of movement can hurt more than the injury itself. There's a word for it: kinesiophobia. Depending on the study, it affects somewhere between 30 and 90% of people living with chronic back pain. The fear that moving will make things worse becomes its own condition, separate from whatever caused the pain in the first place. And here's the cruel part: that fear doesn't stay harmless. Over time, it can change how the nervous system perceives pain itself. A small movement, a minor signal, and the alarm fires again, confirming the fear that started it. Some clinics now use virtual reality to break that cycle, showing the brain that movement is safe again before asking the body to prove it. He told me he used to explain this to patients in 30 seconds and move on. He said if he could go back, he'd give it 30 minutes. The fourth was the one that surprised me most. He said the support people offer often makes pain worse, not better. Not because people mean harm, because too much help, too much checking in, too much "let me do that for you." It teaches the body to believe it can't. Quality of support matters more than quantity. A person who helps you find your way back to moving is worth more than 10 people who do everything for you. There was a fifth thing, though he never called it that. He called it the hardest lesson of his career: the difference between accepting pain and giving up to it. He said patients hear the word acceptance and think it means surrender. It doesn't. It means not losing every minute of your attention to the pain, not letting it comment on every movement, every conversation. He compared it once to tinnitus. When your life is empty, the ringing is deafening. When your life fills back up, with people, with purpose, with small routines, the ringing doesn't disappear. It just gets quieter, because it's no longer the only thing left in the room. I asked him once why he never told his own patients any of this. He looked at me for a long moment. He didn't answer. Not that night. A few nights later, in the dark, he said something else instead. He said that for 30 years he had been trained to fix what could be seen on a scan. Nobody had trained him for what happens when the scan is clean and the person in front of him is still in pain. He said medicine gave him the language for the body. Nobody gave him the language for what the body does after the injury is gone. I think about that a lot, not just as a nurse, as someone who has sat beside hundreds of people whose pain outlived their injury, and watched them be told in different ways that if the scan is clean, the problem must be somewhere else, in their head, in their attitude, in their imagination. It wasn't. It never was. If you live with pain that doesn't seem to make sense, pain that outlasted the injury, or pain nobody can find a clear cause for, this is worth hearing. It's real. Chronic pain and low mood aren't separate problems that happen to coincide. They feed each other in both directions. Feeling worn down by pain doesn't mean you're weak, and it doesn't mean the pain is in your head. It means your nervous system and your emotional state are doing exactly what they're built to do: react to each other. Asking for support, medical or otherwise, isn't giving up. It's often the only way the alarm system learns to quiet down. When a person has regained the serenity of their mind, Hildegard wrote, the vessels also return to their healthy state. She didn't have a scan. She didn't have the word nociceptor. She understood something it took modern medicine another 800 years to measure. He never told his patients what he told me in those nights. Maybe some things are easier to say to someone who isn't waiting for you to fix them.